everybody, today I'm going to go over some punch needle basics with you. I'll be using the Kimberbell Punch Needle Plus kit called Bugs in Bloom. I've already traced my pattern. You can do this with a light box, holding it up to a window, however it's easiest for you. Their patterns are going to start coming pre-printed, so that's why I didn't put this step on camera. And some of their patterns come with these fabric appliques. They're very easy. You peel it, you stick it down, you iron it on. We're going to start with some of these stitches. This design has a flat stitch. You can see where it says flat, flat, flat. Loop stitches and a flat single line. We'll work through these stitches today. I'm also going to show you how to thread your punch, how to work with the yarn. These kits do come with your punch, your threader for your punch, and all the fabric and supplies you need. The only thing you need is a pair of scissors. Let's get started. All of their kits have very detailed instructions. They also have a scan code that'll take you to Kimberbell's YouTube to watch tutorials. I've worked through the cutting and tracing and the applique, and if you notice step 5, it talks about separating the hoop into 2 rings. I'm going to show you that really quick. Mine's already hooped, but their projects either come pre-stretched on a canvas frame or with one of these hoops. This is plastic, rubbery, kind of. See how it rolls? And then the piece underneath is a white plastic, and it's got a groove. So this sets into the groove and it holds your fabric tight enough to punch. We're going to start with the loop stitch. The pattern says to do the bright white centers flowers 1 and 2 and periwinkle flower number 1. So they always tell you which stitch and give you the colors in the order. So here's your white centers, and here's the periwinkle. What I'm going to do is show you the loop stitch here on the white, and then we'll do the periwinkle flower, and then we'll move on to the next stitch. Let's start with how to thread your punch. You can see the punch has a hole in it like the eye of a needle, and it's got a beveled edge. What I like to do is cover the beveled edge with my finger. So cover this up. This lets you thread it in one step. You're going to get your threader. You're going to put it right here in the hole, and because you have it covered, it's going to go down the punch. If you don't have it covered, it'll just come out the other side, which that's fine. You can do that, but then you have to pull it through and run it down the center of the punch needle. That's why I like to cover this. Put it in the hole, and it's long enough. And here it is on the other side. You've got the nice big wire loop. Go ahead and take your yarn, put it through the wire loop, and then you're going to draw it through the punch needle tool. And you want to make sure it's coming out on this side. You don't want it coming out on that side. Then we're going to take the wire off here, and we're going to be ready to punch. With your yarn for punch needle, you want to make sure that you pull some out, that it's nice and loose. It'll make your punch needle project easier to work with. If your yarn is tight and you're trying to punch with tight yarn, it's just going to keep coming in and out of the fabric and it won't stay. I've got a really long tail here. I'm going to go ahead and shorten this tail. We don't want to waste our yarn. There we go. The loop stitch is done from the back, and you're going to see why. I'm going to start with the center of this flower. Just going to pick a spot, drop it in. Now your tail is on this side, which is just fine. You want it on the back side anyway. You want to make sure you can punch all the way down. Don't half punch. You want it punched all the way down. Draw your needle up. This beveled edge, the open edge, it's like you're working with a spoon. Think of it that way. Keep that spoon side up, move it about 1/4 of an inch, and down. So we're going to do that again. We're going to go about 1/4 of an inch, and down. I'm going to do this small section. Watch where your hands are. Don't put your hands underneath your piece because you'll poke your finger. This is a small section. It'll fill in pretty quick. You can go in circles, you can go back and forth, you can randomly run it across. For a section this small, it's not really going to matter. Get it filled in. Just remember to go in the direction of like a scoop. You can either rotate your piece or rotate the tool. I usually rotate the tool. That looks pretty filled in. I'm going to bring this up. Go ahead and cut. Now we're going to flip it to the other side. See the loops? That's why it's called the loop stitch. If you want to even them out, you can pull them and fluff them and make them all fluffy. And like if you look at this, it may not look like much, but you're going to fill this in too. This is also the loop stitch. As you fill in other sections with yarn, it'll make it puff up like that. Let's fill in this section together. We're going to switch colors. You'll notice this skein is smaller than the white. The white for this piece is also in the background. That's why you have more white yarn. This will be plenty to fill in this section. So go ahead and open your yarn. Find the end, and you can just leave it nice and loose. There we go. Got my end there. Grab your punch. Cover the end. Put your threader in the hole. You can kind of see my threader's bent. It really does not matter. If you happen to lose your punch threader, you can buy them at craft shops online. They're not hard to find. And if you happen, if you happen to pull off the little tab, it'll still work. You just hold it. Got my yarn through. There we go. Yeah, that tail of course is way too long. Let's go ahead and get the yarn out of the threader. And let's shorten that tail. That'll be good. And we're going to fill this in with the loop stitch. So same as we did with that. Grab your starting point. Make sure it goes all the way down. And get these tails out of the way. Don't punch your finger. Get that out of the way. There we go. And go about 1/4 of an inch-ish. Now I'm going to leave this open and I'm going to fill this in, and that's just going to leave me a pathway to get to the next petal. You can go all the way around and fill it all in however you want to do that. Now when I turn to go back and fill in, I'm going to kind of offset like a row of bricks. Instead of punching in the same spot as I go, I'm going to offset it a little bit. Now this won't matter as much for the loop because we're going to see the loop on the front, but when we do the other stitches, the flat stitch is the same as the loop stitch, just from the other side of your piece. You will see these stitches. So making them offset will help it look a little more balanced if you like that look. Again, see, you can just kind of randomly punch. And when we go to the front of the piece, I will show you what to do if you make a mistake. So make sure we're filling in. That looks good. Now I'm going to move to the next leaf. See my yarn? You want to make sure it's nice and loose. There we go. And we'll keep going. See how I've got a little bit of an open space here? I'm on the back side, I'm doing the loop stitch. I'm just going to jump over and I'm going to fill that in because I'm not worried about how this looks because it's on the back. Ta-da! Now, looking at this, I'm going to go ahead and fluff this, fluff it up. I feel like I want to put a stitch maybe right there. Again, personal preference. So that is, I can feel my finger, it's over there. Again, I've got plenty of yarn. Let me show you. I've got enough yarn left. I'm just going to kind of hop over, and you can also do it from behind. And put in the extra stitch. And it looks like I might need one about here. Now you can't travel really far across the back. You can't like stretch your yarn all the way over. Like right here. Let's say I want to fill that in. I don't really have to because this will fluff up, but let's say I want to fill that in. Okay, and where am I right now? I'm right here right now. Can you see where the needle is? It's over here, and I want to be over here. I have enough yarn to cut that off and then to go back and fill in that spot. So that's what I'm going to do. And you can fill in just one spot. I think I actually have a couple spots I want to fill in. I'm going to go ahead and fill in here. Okay. Got my tail. It's not too long, but again, I'm almost done with this color. It's the only place I need this color. I've got plenty of yarn. So I'm going to go ahead and fill it in a little bit and make it a little more full. There we go. And maybe one more right around here. That looks good. And pull that up and trim that off. That is your loop stitch. Let's go next to what's called the flat single line. That's an easy one to learn. The flat single line is right here. It's the stem. We just did our loop stitch, and I'll go back and do the other loop stitch later. We're going to do the flat single line, and then we'll move right into the flat stitch. We can do both of those together. When we're done with that, you'll have learned all the stitches you need to complete this punch needle project. The flat single line is going to run the length of this stem. This one you're going to punch from the front. So when you put your first punch in, again, make sure it's all the way down. You're going to want to turn it upside down and grab your tail. If your tail's too long, pull your yarn and you're all set. This works just like the loop stitch. Now our loops are going to show on the back. So this is a flat single line. I'm going to have that scoop going in the direction of the stem. Again, I'm going to go, I don't know, 1/4 inches-ish. You do not have to count squares. Let's say I make a mistake. Let's say my yarn is really tight and I think I'm punching and punching and punching. Maybe I'm watching TV and I look down and I have this. Uh-oh, that's not right. All you do, in fact I can take up the whole thing and show you. You can actually pull out all your stitches and just kind of fluff your fabric a little bit and you can start over. All right. Punch in. Pull your yarn to the back. Make sure your tail is not too long. And we're going to do flat single line. Going in the direction of the scoop here. Make sure you punch all the way down and you're touching your canvas. we'll go all the way to the end, and then I'm going to show you how to adjust these stitches too. You can see how some of them are lying more flat than others. We'll go over how to adjust that. I'm going to stop right here. Do you see how some of them really stick up from the fabric and some of them are nice and flat? Flip your project to the back. Look familiar? There's your loops. You can just tug on your loops, and when you tug the loops from behind, it's going to pull your stitches flat on the front. I hope the camera can pick that up. There they go, nice and flat. See? And if for any reason, if you happen to accidentally pull something out, just do what we did before, pull the yarn out, fluff your fabric, start over. The rest of this is the flat stitch. It's done the same as the flat single line. So the flat single line is flat and in a single line. The flat stitch is the flat stitch and you fill in the area. Let me show you the picture of the completed project. See? It's the flat stitch. You'll get plenty of practice with the flat stitch. This white is all flat stitch too. Let's go ahead and fill in a leaf. I'm going to outline and then I'm going to fill in. Here's where I'm going to offset. And again, I'm going in the direction of the scoop, so you can rotate your piece like this as you're working, or you can rotate your punch tool. So we'll go back and I'll rotate the tool. I'm going to just turn that, and we're going to fill in. And I'm going to finish up in the middle here. That looks good. Now I want to make sure when I flip it to the back and cut, I don't have a really long tail because I don't want to waste my yarn. So I'm going to cut it right about there. It looks good. And again, you can pull your loops from the back, make sure it's nice and flat. And you are ready to complete the rest of this project. Let's talk about doing the flat single line around your applique piece. So when we did our flat single line here with the green, we went in the direction of our scoop, straight up and down, moving along the line. To help get around your fabric piece, I'm going to angle my scoop up facing me. Let's go ahead and put our punch in and pull our tail to the back. And I want to shorten the tail. Doesn't need to be that long. I'm going to pull the punch up and it's facing up to me, like if it was full of tasty ice cream and I was eating a big spoonful. Now I'm going to slide along the fabric and punch down a little bit at an angle. It just makes it easier to get around and under your fabric without punching through that fabric applique. Now you'll notice it almost creates a twisty braided look, so it does give it a little bit of a different look by keeping that scoop side of the punch facing up towards you. See? And again, you can tighten this by pulling your loops from the back side, or you can leave it puffy if you like that. I'm going to go ahead and outline my two ladybugs. Sometimes when you're working around the fabric, you need your punch needle surface, your cloth, to be a little tighter. You can look where I'm going to be going and I've got a finger on the back right here and a finger on the back over here, just to lift it a little bit and make it tighter. Make sure you're not going to punch your fingers. It hurts. Needle up, and this just gives it a little bit extra tightness. if you need that, if you find maybe your fabric's not quite tight enough in your hoop at this point. There we go. I've got one more to do. All the punching is done. What's left for this is to hand embroider the antenna and add the buttons. I wanted to show you that I had yarn left. Some people worry about running out of yarn. If you watch your tails when you're doing your punching, you're not going to run out of yarn. I have plenty of extra yarn. I'll put this in my yarn pile. In the kit, you do get your needle and needle threader, your buttons, and black embroidery floss. Now the buttons, if you don't want to attach them with the floss, you can hot glue your buttons. I've done that on some of the projects before. I'm going to go ahead and hand embroider the antenna. I've got plenty of black left. I'm going to go ahead and use the larger needle for my yarn, and I'm going to embroider the antenna with the black yarn. You could also do this with the embroidery floss, personal preference. I'm going to do the yarn. I'm going to go ahead and divide what I have left in half and just plan on using one part for one ladybug and one for another. Set that aside. Got my needle threaded. This works just like the punch needle threader. Tie a knot. If you're a cross stitcher or needle worker, you're not used to tying knots. We're always hiding our threads. Go ahead and tie a knot. Now, we've punched over the markings on the pattern. So go back to your picture or your pattern. It actually does tell you here, floss, black, 6 strands. I'm going to do the yarn. Let's see what it looks like. If it looks bad, we'll pull it out. And it says to use a back stitch. Let's start. Make sure you don't catch your extra fabric. I'm going to start on the big bug. Right about there looks good. Let's see, let's go over just a little bit. Let's try it with the yarn and see if it looks okay. Now I'm just holding this to make sure I don't accidentally pull through any of my punch needle work. And I'm just glancing over at the pattern. I have the pattern next to me. Well, I like the way it looks with the yarn. So since I have enough yarn, I'll go ahead and do this with the yarn. Look, you can see I didn't pull it through to my knot. Why don't we do that? There we go. Okay. And then back where your first stitch was. You can see I caught some of the white yarn. I'm just going to back out my needle here. There we go, so I don't shred my yarn. That looks good. And we'll just make it kind of curve around to the end. If you want to get fancy pants, you can put a French knot on the end. I'm not going to do that. I don't like making French knots. I can do it, but it's not my favorite. Make sure I didn't catch any yarn. Oh, I'm good. This looks good with the yarn. Now, if you were doing this with the embroidery floss, the one thing you would want to watch for is not to pull it too tight, because your floss will disappear into your punch needle piece. I think I'll make one more little turn so it looks a little bit rounder, a little bit fancier. Let's see, right there. Yeah, let's put it right there. Hold that up. Well, that looks cute. I like that. I'm going to go ahead and do one more here, and then do these two, and I'll put up a picture. Got the antenna done. Each ladybug has 3 buttons. You can refer to your pattern and stitch those down. It tells you to use 6 strands, and you're going to want to use the smaller needle for this because the larger needle won't fit through the buttonhole. Let's put on some buttons. Tie a knot at the end. I tied it twice. I might even want to tie it one more time, just because if it happens to hit one of the holes in the monk's cloth, it'll pull through. They're pretty big holes. Thread your needle, again the smaller needle. Gonna look at my pattern. I'm gonna start with that one. Looks like it goes, you know, about there-ish. Here it looks like it kind of goes over the flat single line stitch. We'll see if I can make it do that. Let's make sure that these buttons don't have a right or a wrong side. Nope. Okay. I'm gonna aim from the back here. Let's see how that looks. That looks a little high. I'll bring it down a little bit. That's pretty good. You can look at the picture too. And I'm just going to go up and down. Hold it where, make sure I've pulled all the way through to my knot. Hold it where I want it. And a little bit of pressure to get it through because you're going through your fabric. I'm going to have a look at the back. Make sure I'm not pulling any yarn. There's button 1. Here's your Bugs and Blooms Punch Needle Plus kit by Kimberbell, all done. What do you do about this and finishing? There's a couple things you can do. With mine, I like to actually coat the back with Mod Podge made for fabric. It makes it a little bit more secure. You don't have to do that because the tension on the hoop will keep it in place. And in fact, for this one, I'm not going to do that because this isn't seasonal. I would really suggest doing that if you're doing a seasonal punch needle or if you have a peel and stick stabilizer. The reason I recommend that for something seasonal is if you're like storing it and putting it in and out of a bag and moving it around, you don't want any of your stitches to pull out. We'll finish this together. You can cinch the back using thread, yarn, floss. Now you can see there's quite a bit of extra. I'm not going to cut it because all the edges are nicely serged. You can, and Kimberbell has a video showing this, you can trim it, make a nice round circle, but I'm not going to. We're going to finish this today, and I will go ahead and tie off with the yarn since I've got plenty of white yarn. I got lots of white yarn left. This is really nice soft yarn too. If you're a knitter or a crocheter, you can use this for other crafts, absolutely. And of course you can do more punch needle. You can buy monk's cloth on its own. Here we go. Thread that through. Now I'm just going to pull off a bunch because I'm going to need to tie it in a knot. Sometimes I do this with thread The only problem with finishing the back with thread is because the holes are so big the thread pulls through. And again, if you want this to look neater, trim it up first. I don't. And this is going to go on my wall with my other punch needles, and I really love the ladybugs. I love when we get ladybugs out here. It's kind of hot, so we don't see them very often. Sometimes when the weather's cooler, we'll have a raised bed garden and we'll actually go get ladybugs to put in with the garden. But you have to be careful because of the weather. It's really hot in Arizona. I cut that kind of long. Now you don't have to pull it every time, but what's going to happen as you pull it tight, it's going to cinch closed. So what you're going to do, I had my phone off through most of the filming, but I had to turn it on. I'm watching for a package delivery. Back to the beginning. Just give it a little tug. And now, like I said, if you wanted, you could have trimmed this at the beginning. I didn't. I'm going to go ahead and just put in a couple extra stitches to hold these little flaps down so that when I hang this on my wall, there's not a lot of bulk behind it. It'll help it lie flat. Your piece is done and ready to hang. Look at that. Why don't we trim that? There we go. Beautiful, love it. Again, this was the Kimberbell Punch Needle Plus Kit called Bugs and Blooms. I'll put a link below where you can purchase this kit. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll be making more punch needle tutorials soon. Bye, everybody.